there are 6 words that make a girl chase you for a date or sex every time. And when you say these 6 words to a girl in the right way at the right time, they hijack her emotional brain and force her to get so aroused that she will drag you into the nearest bedroom and tear your clothes off. These 6 words make beautiful women desperately chase you, even if you're ugly, broke, too old, too young, haven't showered in weeks, or even if you still live with your parents. But before I tell you what these 6 words are, I need to put a strong warning and disclaimer here. Because what we're going to be getting into in this transmission is hardcore, heavy-duty, black ops, psychological warfare, dark sorcery type shit. Because what we are really going to be talking about here is something I call masturbating her emotions. And when you know how to do this, this is pretty much like unscrewing the user interface of a girl's mind, jamming a screwdriver in there, and jiggling it around in the reward circuitry until sparks come flying out. When you understand the power behind these 6 magic words and how to use them, you are literally going to be able to rewire a woman's brain in real time to make her addicted to you. In the wrong hands, used maliciously, this technology could literally destroy a woman. I strongly urge you to only use what I'm going to show you in this video for good, to give women great experiences and start amazing relationships. Don't use this to screw anyone over. It will come back to bite you in the face if you do. And I just want to make that very, very clear at the outset. So with that disclaimer out of the way, what are these 6 words that masturbate a woman's emotions and make her chase you like a junkie fiending for her next fix? The 6 words are very simple. I love you. I hate you. I love you, I hate you. That's all you got to say. That's all you've got to remember to make any beautiful woman psychotically obsessed with you. Now, don't get me wrong here. Obviously, if you just randomly text a girl, I love you, I hate you, that is not going to work. It's also not going to work if you just randomly approach some chick and blurt out these 6 words in a way that doesn't make sense in the context of that conversation. So do not do that. That's only going to make you look weird. However, when you slip these words into a conversation with a woman in the right way, at the right time, in the right context, and with the right emotions behind the words, you will be able to hook into any girl's subconscious and force her to start chasing you like a heat-seeking missile. And in this special presentation, I'm going to show you how. You can think of this as being like a user manual for the female brain. And this video is basically going to be like the ultimate masterclass in female psychology and how to make a girl chase you. Now, that word chase is very important because what you have to understand right away is that making a girl attracted to you and making her chase you are actually 2 completely different things. You know, the typical advice for how to be more attractive to women is to do things like, increase your value, become better looking by lifting weights, dressing better, or, make more money. And yes, those things will make you a lot more attractive to women and you should do them, but they will not make women chase you. A girl can find you attractive but not chase you at all. And on the other hand, a girl might not actually find you attractive whatsoever, but if you know the right things to say to activate her emotions and trigger her desire for validation, she will start chasing you. And funny enough, when a girl is chasing you, even if she didn't find you attractive initially, she will usually start to backwards rationalize that you must be attractive, because why else would she be chasing you so hard? It's too inconsistent with her identity to imagine that she's someone who would chase someone she's not attracted to. And so she will literally start to make you attractive in her own mind to make sense of her own behavior. And so learning to make a girl chase you is far, far superior to simply becoming more attractive, because when she's chasing you, she's going to wind up becoming attracted anyway. Now, if you're anything like I used to be, women usually don't chase you at all. Back when I was in college in 2012, I had no girlfriend, no dating life at all. I was desperate to meet a girl and get laid. And I actually did a lot of the things that people say you should do to become more attractive. Like I started lifting weights. I got in really good shape. I had a 6-pack. I had a thick, full head of hair back then. I dressed well. And I even got compliments from women about how I looked fairly regularly. And yet, whenever I was actually talking to a girl I liked, it was always just very flat. Even when the girl was actually being friendly with me, I felt like she was just kind of being polite. Like she was just kind of like answering my questions politely. But when I actually tried to move things forward and make it romantic or sexual in some way, like if I said, so do you want to grab a drink later? The girl would always be like, no, sorry, I'm busy later. And if I was like, well, what about tomorrow? Or how about Friday? Or how about next week? The girl would be like, I'm busy all those other days as well. So it was very frustrating because I was doing everything right. I was a decently good looking guy. I had looks maxed, and I even saw girls looking at me and kind of checking me out sometimes. So I was obviously like attractive enough. But whenever I was actually talking to a girl, there was just never anything sexual about it. And she also never chased me at all or showed any real interest in getting to know me beyond being just a friend. But then one day I stumbled on a video by this guy, Julian Blanc. He was a pickup artist at the time, part of Real Social Dynamics. But really, he was more like a black magician because what this guy was able to do with girls was straight up fucking sorcery. So Julian was this super skinny guy, kind of ugly with a weird foreign accent. And he would go out to nightclubs in the Hollywood Hills. He hadn't showered in weeks, wearing a dirty shirt, greasy hair, reeking of BO. And yet this guy would consistently pull literal Playboy bunnies and Maxim models and other, super hot blonde bombshell, perfect 10 type girls in the Hollywood Hills. And much of this was caught on film. You could actually see him approaching these girls and taking them home on hidden camera video that RSD used to post back then. YouTube got more strict with that kind of content later on, so those videos are all gone now. But there was this brief window of time in the 2010s when all those infill videos were available. And so I became obsessed with studying this guy and figuring out what he was doing, because the reactions he got from girls were insane. I mean, like, girls would be immediately chasing him, immediately trying to make out with him, begging him to take them home. It was completely nuts. And these were girls who, again, to look at, should have been way out of his league, and he was basically able to control them like a fucking puppet master. He'd even post like texts and voicemails he got from girls he was dating where it's like literally a Playboy model and she's in the middle of doing a modeling shoot, but she's in the bathroom crying her eyes out, desperately calling him and triple texting him, begging him to see her again. I mean, it was just completely insane. It broke my whole model of reality, my whole model of what was possible. And so for a period of time, I became utterly obsessed with this, and I became obsessed with trying to break down exactly what Julian was doing and saying to these girls so I could do it myself. And what I realized, it was actually quite simple. It all centered around what pickup artists used to call in those days push and pull. Again, it all really boiled down to just those 6 little words: I love you, I hate you. That's really all that Julian was doing and saying. It was just different variations of these 2 different polar opposite emotions of love you, hate you, and rinse repeat until the girl was psychotically obsessed with him. So having reverse engineered what he was doing, I then started trying it out myself. I remember the first night I ever really took these 6 words out for a spin. I met this little blonde girl, petite, 18 years old, very hot. And I started trying out just kind of slipping these words, I love you and I hate you, into the conversation with her. And it was a little clunky and weird at first, it didn't really make sense. And yet to my amazement, it actually worked. To my surprise, the girl actually bought it. She started being very, very flirty towards me. She was like laughing, giggling, smiling at everything I said. She was touching me, being very forward. And we actually started making out right then and there within like just 1 or 2 minutes of having met. And this was probably like the prettiest girl I'd ever kissed at this point in my life. I mean, like very, very hot little 18-year-old blonde girl in a tight dress, white tennis shoes, petite, sexy body, gorgeous face. And at the time, this was a complete revelation to me. I had never imagined that it would be possible to get a girl who was this hot, this into me, and do it right away, within literally seconds of meeting her. And it was really all just by saying these stupid little words of I love you and I hate you. Now, since that time, I've, refined this a lot. I've made it more subtle, more powerful, more effective. And I've used this to sleep with dozens, if not hundreds of girls at this point. You can see me on screen with some of the chicks I've dated in the past right now. And these are girls I met through both cold approach, social circle, online dating. We're mainly going to be focusing on cold approach in this video because it's the most pure form of pickup. This stuff does work everywhere else though. But one warning, you don't want to be using this in your text messages to girls. However, this has too much room for being misinterpreted. It's not a good idea. So these 6 words, I love you, I hate you, unless you really know what you're doing, this is something you only ever want to use when you're face to face with a girl, either when you're first meeting her during an approach or on a date, for example. Now, how do you get face to face with that hot girl who you want? Well, one way is you can approach her. Another way though is that you can get girls like this to approach you, which actually happens to me quite often now. And I have a short free book about that, which you can have if you want. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Making Women Approach You. You can download that at my website. Just click the link in the pinned comment below, then put in your email address and I'll send you the free book right away. You'll also be signed up to my newsletter to get daily free articles from me about dating, game, female psychology, attraction techniques, all that good stuff. So just click the link below to grab your free book right now while you still can and while it's still free. Okay, what we're going to get into now though is the nitty-gritty of how to make a girl chase you using this powerful emotional push-pull technique of I love you, I hate you, those 6 magic words. And there's 2 main things we got to cover here. First of all, I want to go deep on the psychology of this, why these 6 words trigger girls to chase you, what is actually going on inside women's heads when you use this. And then after we cover the female psychology, we're going to get into the actual mechanics and the practical application of how you do this, how you say these words, how to deliver them, when's the right time to say them, when is the wrong time. But you're going to need to bear with me here, because if we just launch straight into the technique, it's not really going to make sense. You really do need to understand the deep unconscious dynamics of female psychology first in order to use this 6-word technique effectively. So we need to go back and we need to start at the very, very, very beginning here. And we need to answer the most fundamental question there is, which is, what do women want? What do they actually want? Not what do they say they want, not even what do they think they want, but what do women actually respond to? What do they actually chase? And the answer to this, which, modern social conditioning gives you, is that, women want value. They want a high value man, and women chase men who are high value. And by high value here, people generally mean some combination of things like looks, money, and social status. And that is wrong. Women don't chase money. They don't chase men with good looks. They don't chase status. What women actually chase is emotions. So get this into your head right now and understand it. Women do not chase value. Women do not even chase men. What women chase is emotions. And more specifically, what they're really chasing is strong emotions. Now, sometimes the emotions she's chasing happen to have a man attached to them, but it's always the emotions that she's actually chasing, never the actual man himself. And this is really important to understand. It's also one of the reasons women can be so fickle, like how she can be in love with you one moment, but then a week later she's breaking up with you. And then a month later, she barely even remembers that you exist. Well, why is that? I think every guy has had an experience like that. And the reason it happens is because she was never actually chasing you. She wasn't even chasing the value you have in terms of your looks or money, because obviously those things didn't change. What she was chasing and what she was attached to were the emotions that you were providing her. But when you stop providing those strong emotions to her, she stops chasing you. And she will usually find another guy who can provide her with those strong emotions which you stopped providing. Now, by the same token, when you understand these dynamics, you will be able to take girls from guys who are richer than you, better looking than you, higher status than you, simply because you are providing her with more and stronger emotions than he is. And the ultimate in giving her strong emotions is this technique that I call masturbating her emotions, quote unquote. And this is where you're giving her so much and so many different emotions that it's like she's practically having a fucking orgasm. It's an emotional orgasm, so to speak. So we're going to get into that later. But the point is, first principle of female psychology to be aware of is that women don't chase men. What women actually chase is emotions. And sometimes those emotions happen to be attached to a man, but it's always the emotions she is chasing. It's the emotions she is addicted to, not the man. Okay, now the next principle is that it's not just that women want emotions. As I said, what they really want, what they are really all unconsciously chasing is strong emotions. They want to feel an intensity of emotions, and importantly, they also want to feel a wide variety of emotions. In other words, they don't just want to feel positive emotions all the time. Counterintuitively, women also want to feel quote unquote negative emotions sometimes as well. A way of putting this is that what women really want is drama. They want to be on an emotional roller coaster. They want to experience lots of different exciting emotional highs and lows, ups and downs. Just like a roller coaster, if it was just all flat the entire way, you would be bored. It wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be exciting. It wouldn't be thrilling. There has to be a mix of ups and downs for it to be stimulating and exciting. And it's exactly the same with women and how they view relationships and interactions with men. Now, this is very, very difficult to get your head around as a guy, because this is pretty much the exact opposite of how we tend to operate. What we want as guys is to feel good all the time. We don't even need to feel intensely good. If we can just feel that one single emotion of pretty good all the time and keep that stable with no downswings, most of us would be very, very happy with that. That's kind of what we're all chasing in a way. Not even necessarily feeling amazing, but if we could just get everything in our life sorted out to the point where we felt pretty good all the time, that would be like heaven to us as guys. But for women, it is the exact opposite. To a woman feeling, pretty good all the time in a flat line with no emotional variety, with no ups and downs, that is basically like hell to her after a certain point. What women like, what they crave, unconsciously or not, is the jagged line, the emotional roller coaster. Lots of different emotional highs and lows. That's what women get off on. That's what they're all unconsciously seeking. It's why they like crying at sad movies, for example. It's also why they're so drawn to bad boys who break their hearts, make them cry, put them through a lot of negative emotions sometimes. As I heard a guy once say, this was a rich guy, millionaire, but he also did really, really good with girls. He said, the best way to keep a girl on the hook is to keep the waterworks going. And by waterworks, he meant, like either tears or And there's a lot of truth to that. This is also why, some of the best sex you'll ever have with your girlfriend happens right after a fight or an argument, or sometimes even in the middle of an argument. Women get off on experiencing a range of emotions, not just positive, but also negative. And to them, this is a need that can be as powerful or even more powerful as their need for sex. If you think about how much you want sex and you need that sexual release as a man, women need to experience strong emotions in the same way as we need sex as men. And again, if you're not providing it to her, she will get it elsewhere. And you have to understand that even negative emotions, even something like, crying her eyes out, is actually pleasurable to women on a certain level. She wants to do it. She likes feeling like that sometimes. When a guy makes her cry, there's a degree to which she's actually enjoying that experience. Again, very difficult to get your head around as a man, but it's something you have to understand and internalize if you want to know why women do what they do, and if you want to know how to properly influence them to make them love you and chase you. A great example of this really shocked me at the time. A girlfriend I had years ago, she was very hot, she was an Instagram model, kind of an e-girl. She once told me that when she was really bored, one of the things she liked to do when she was single, before she met me, was she'd go to her room and lock the door, she'd pull the blinds down, she'd get in her bed with her laptop, and then she'd find the saddest, most depressing, bleak documentary she could find on Netflix, like something about like little kids with cancer, for example, and she'd put on this documentary and watch it and sit there and cry her eyes out. And I was like, why the fuck would you ever want to make yourself cry or feel bad? That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. But the way this girl explained it to me, really interesting. She said it's a lot like masturbation. The way that guys will jerk off to porn to get that sexual release, the way she explained it was that she was doing this, deliberately making herself cry to these movies to get that emotional release. It's cathartic, it feels good, which is kind of sick when you think about it. Like you're using kids with cancer to get off. In a way, it's actually almost worse than porn. But that's what she told me, and that's what a lot of girls are like. And if it isn't this, if it isn't sad movies, it's something else. Women like negative emotions in certain contexts. They like emotional variety. They don't ever want to feel only one emotion for too long, even if it's a good one. They want a mixture of different emotions, and they want a level of intensity in those emotions, which in the vast majority of cases, their real life does not provide. Hence why they escape to fantasy, movies, books, as well as to certain guys who, for a variety of reasons, do provide her with those strong emotions. Sigmund Freud said, we are so made that we can derive intense pleasure only from a contrast. Very, very important to understand. She can only really experience the highs, the emotional pleasure, if it's contrasted with a previous low or form of, quote unquote pain. And the reason this is so important to get your head around is I don't think a single one of us watching this video wants to hurt women or ever make them feel negative emotions. The problem with that, however, is that if you just give her positive emotions and nothing but positive emotions, she will get bored. She will not be aroused. She will not chase you. She will lose attraction to you, assuming she had any to begin with. And she will inevitably leave you for a guy who does provide her with a more satisfying mix of both positive and negative emotions. So that is the kind of introduction to the psychology behind how you make a girl chase you. It all comes down to giving her strong emotions and a wide variety of emotions, both hot and cold, up and down, positive and negative. We're now going to get into the actual mechanics of how you do this in practice. What do you do? What do you say to trigger those strong emotions and make her chase you? Or how do you masturbate her emotions, as I like to call it? And so the way you do this, once again, it all comes down to those 6 words: I love you and I hate you. Hot, cold, up, down, push, pull. To make a girl chase you, to get that hot girl in the club to immediately snap to attention, to have more value to her than anyone else there, you have to rail her brain with a continuous and unpredictable barrage of both positive and negative emotions. Love and hate, approval and disapproval, desire and disgust. or aversion. Now, that being said, of course, just going up to a girl and saying, I love you, I hate you is obviously not going to work. There's a degree of finesse you have to develop with this. It's not necessarily about hitting her over the head with these 6 words like a shovel. There's a certain subtlety and panache you have to have with this, a certain savoir-faire.
Do you understand foreign languages? Yes.
So my task now is to put everything that is in my head about how to do this into yours. So I want to start by showing you a few different graphs here that will allow you to understand this better. So the first one is the emotional map of the typical interaction between a guy and a girl. This is probably what your interactions with women look like now when you approach them or you meet them for a hinge date or something. This line represents the emotions the girl is feeling while you're speaking to her. As you can see, there's not much going on. The guy is keeping his expressions within a very narrow range of emotion. There is virtually no emotion being expressed at all. He's not saying anything super positive. He's not saying anything negative. And he doesn't want to be too positive towards the girl because that's needy. That's giving her power away. He certainly isn't going to say, I love you to a girl he just met because that would be weird. That would be desperate. So maybe the most positive he'll ever risk going is to tell the girl something like, you look cute today, or I like your outfit. And that's a mildly positive statement. It causes a mildly positive emotion. And a lot of guys won't even allow themselves to say that. When they're talking to a girl, they want to keep the conversation focused on small talk, low risk, like where do you go to college? What do you do for a living? Or if it's a girl you're already friends with, it might be, like, how are your pets doing? How's your family? You mentioned last time that your dog was sick. Is your dog okay now? Is everything going good? And the emotions the girl is feeling in response to this is what we call the dead zone. It's a flat line. And this is where you get those conversations where the girl is just kind of smiling politely, nodding along, answering your questions, but inside she feels nothing, no strong emotions, and no sexual attraction to you whatsoever. Now, in this second graph, we have something that looks a little bit better. It's not the best it could be, but it's much, much better than what the average sex-deprived beta male guy does, because in this graph, what we might call the graph of the, rookie pickup artist, we have a guy who's more willing and more comfortable with taking risks. He's more expressive. And so he's able to make the girl feel a much bigger range of different emotions than the average beta male boring guy does. In this case, the guy is using a few of the typical kind of push-pull lines that you might learn about online from reading dating advice. For example, you can say to the girl something like, you and me would not get along. That's a mild negative emotional spike. Girl will usually be like, why? And the emotion she's feeling is one of kind of surprise, confusion, which is mildly negative. And it's negative not necessarily because you said anything mean, but simply because you're not giving her the pandering and the praise she's come to expect from random loser guys. You're not kissing her ass like every other guy. You're being a little bit challenging. And so that provides some mild negative emotions, which is stimulating and therefore good. Now, on the positive side of the spectrum, this guy is also willing to go further and take a little bit more risk than the average boring guy does. For example, he might tell the girl something like, you know what? You're actually kind of adorable. Positive emotion. Again, a mildly positive spike. So already we're in a much, much better place here. There is some action going on emotionally on this line. The girl is actually feeling something. She's feeling some, little emotional ups and downs as she talks to you. And importantly, there's a mix of ups and downs. It's unpredictable. He's not getting stuck too long on one side. And so the girl doesn't know what's going to happen next. And that's all very stimulating. Now, it's still very mild compared to where it could be. And these kinds of very mild push-pulls, they're probably not going to make the girl sick to her stomach with desire and aching for you. But this right here is still much, much better than what most guys do. If you only did this, if you just fluctuated between these little mildly positive and negative spikes while talking to a girl, you would be way, way ahead of the vast majority of guys in this world. And in a lot of cases, this is all you need. I really want to emphasize that before we go further and we get into the stronger, more intense variations of this. On your regular cute girl, on the girl next door, on the cute nerd girl in your class or at the office, this right here is going to be more than enough. Now, like I said, this is not going to make her completely obsessed with you. It's not going to get her to the point where she's tearing her hair out and can't sleep because she's so desperate to be with you. But even keeping it this mild and just remembering to constantly fluctuate between teasing her and complimenting her in little spikes like this will create enough attraction, enough arousal, enough emotional variety that the girl will generally be very compliant to going on a date with you, going home with you afterwards, having sex. She'll actually meet up with you instead of ghosting. So this solves pretty much all your attraction problems right here. Anytime a girl isn't attracted to you, anytime you don't have enough value to her, you just have to remember remember to use these little emotional spikes, especially the negative ones, and you will suddenly become very arousing to her. So you can think of this graph as like the training wheels version of these 6 words. You don't need to use the 6 words yet. You don't need to say I love you. You don't need to say I hate you. You don't need to create drama. You can get by with using these much milder emotional spikes, taking much less risk, just saying things to the girl like, you're kind of cute, or jokingly saying things like, you're a retard, or you're a dork, telling her, I don't think we'd get along. Or on the positive side, giving her compliments. Any compliment that isn't based on her looks is really good. Anything in her personality that you like about her. You compliment the girl on something like that and she'll usually melt. For example, you might tell her, I really like the way you go to the gym a lot and you're very disciplined with your fitness. That's something I think is really cool about you. I really admire that. Or you could tell her like, I really like the way you're so artistic, or you have really good taste. I like your aesthetic. I really like the way you dress and present yourself. Or on the negative side, you can playfully disqualify her. You could say things like, the problem with you, you're very attractive, but you're just too nice. I only like crazy chicks with BPD. You're just too mentally healthy and well-adjusted. You're just not exciting enough for me. Sorry. And these are all just examples of playful little pushes and pulls you can use that give the girl a variety of both positive and negative emotions. And that variety is the key. That is what you've always got to be thinking when you're talking to a girl. It's always got to be a positive, then a negative, then a positive, etc. You've always got to be swinging between these 2 poles. So again, this is the bush league, amateur, little league version of this. And for most guys, again, this is going to be more than enough. You really don't need more. However, what I'm going to show you now is something that almost no one else will, because frankly, this is where we're getting into the real hardcore mind control, psychological warfare, black magic type territory. And this is where, you take this same fundamental emotional structure that works of giving the girl a mix of positive and negative emotions to stimulate her, but then you massively increase the intensity of those emotions. And so it looks something more like this. Much, much bigger spikes, much bigger ups and downs. And this, more than anything else, that good variety of emotions plus adding a massive intensity to those emotions, this is what makes hot girls chase you like crack fucking cocaine. This is a weapon. This is like blasting them with fucking electricity. This is how you get that girl who's super hot, immediately paying attention to you like, holy shit, who's this guy? This is how you get her touching you, flirting with you, trying to win your approval, laughing at everything you say. This is how you get her compliant to kiss you or even go home with you within minutes of meeting. You've got to rail her with these strong emotions, because again, this is actually what they all want. They want to feel strong emotions. They want that in a relationship. They want that guy who makes them cry sometimes because they're so scared of losing him. But then other times when she wins him back, she feels ecstatic. She feels total bliss. She's like drunk on how happy he makes her. And that's what they want in a relationship. They want it to be drama. They want it to give them these very strong emotions of both positive and negative, which are positive overall. But what you can do if you want to make a girl immediately obsessed with you is to condense all that drama and all those ups and downs into a single interaction. So in other words, you're giving her the feeling of these massive ups and downs that you would get from being in an intense, passionate relationship that might go on for, months or years, but you're doing that right away, immediately on meeting her. And you're doing it in the course of just, 15 or 30 minutes sometimes. And that's what masturbating her emotions really is. You're taking what women really want, what they really fantasize about, what they read books about, which is a stormy, passionate relationship between a man and a woman, but you're condensing that into like lightning in a bottle, and you're giving her that up front, right away, right after meeting her. So, the way to think about this is think of a relationship, a long-term relationship you've had, think of all the ups and downs that naturally happen in the course of that, the fights, the arguments, but then the makeup sex. Think of the emotional peaks at the start where you're both completely infatuated with each other. And then think of all the bullshit that happens, the drama, the jealousy, the low moments, whatever it is. Well, what you're doing with these strong emotional spikes is you're taking all that stuff, which would normally take place over the course of years, and you're distilling it and condensing it and shrinking it down into this super potent, white hot little package of emotion, and you're giving that to the girl right up front. You can think of this like you're giving her a kind of simulation of a passionate relationship. You're putting her into a kind of matrix program where she gets to experience that and all the joys and sorrows of that right now, rather than having to wait. And this gives you, like I said, insane value to women, because this is what they actually want. This is what they fantasize about when they read romance novels or, dirty books for women. It's all about this. So how do you do this? How do you increase the voltage? How do you increase the emotional intensity of these pushes and pulls? Well, again, the key words that let you do this, they're very simple. I love you and I hate you. That's all there is to this. That's the essential formula you're working with. Passionate relationship, a stormy relationship, a dramatic relationship. It's always alternating between these two poles of love and hate. And so that's really all you've got to remember to say and convey in the interaction in order to start massively increasing the emotional voltage. Now, you might object to this that, it doesn't really make sense to say I love you or I hate you to a girl I just met. And that's true logically. You don't actually know this girl at all. You can't possibly love her or hate her yet. And moreover, if you actually hated her, you obviously wouldn't be talking to her. You would just walk away and leave. So on a logical level, saying I love you and I hate you to a girl doesn't make any sense. However, you have to understand that with girls, they're never paying attention to that logical layer of the interaction. All she's ever focused on is the emotional layer. If you say to a girl you just met, I fucking hate you, she is not going to be like, how could you hate me? You don't know me yet. Unless she's literally autistic, she's never going to say that. What she's going to say 99% of the time is something like, fuck you, or you hate me, why? Girls don't care about the logic of what's being said, so get that out of your head. They don't care if what you're saying doesn't make logical sense. All they're ever focused on is the emotions. How do I feel right now talking to this guy? That's all she actually is focusing on. So don't worry that it doesn't make logical sense. Learn to use these words of I love you, I hate you more like you're playing an instrument. So again, I love you, I hate you is the basic format here. It doesn't have to make sense, but if you feel kind of weird about saying this, you can also kind of segue into this kind of talk using the following formats. On the positive or, the I love you side, you could say things like, I love that you blank. I love your blank. I love the way you blank. You know what? You just did blank. And I kind of love that, to be honest. I fucking love you. Or when the girl, tells you something about herself, like if she's like, I'm from here, or I do XYZ job, or I've been doing such and such tonight, you can always respond something like, oh my God, I fucking love that. I love you. And on the hate side, it's the same deal. You don't necessarily need to say, I hate you right off the bat. You can kind of ease your way into it by using little teases like, I hate that you blank. I hate your blank. I hate that you do blank. I hate the way you did blank just now. I loved you a second ago, but then you did blank. And now I just fucking hate you. You're done. It's over between us. Sorry. And these should always be delivered in a playful way at first. Again, a really good transition to use for going into the I hate you side of things is something like, I was so attracted to you when I first saw you a second ago, but now my attraction for you has just completely died. I fucking hate you. You're the worst. And as you can tell from my tone of voice there, this is playful. It's banter. The girl knows you're not being serious. You're not saying I hate you in an angry way. You're saying these strong things. You're giving her these pretty strong emotions, but you're saying it in a tone of voice that makes it okay because the girl knows you're just being playful. And if she ever gets mad or offended, you can always be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just fucking around. Or, I'm just kidding. Just that. I'm just kidding can get you out of anything. Now, another thing is you don't need to be using emotional spikes like this all the time. Your conversation should be like just 80% normal, boring small talk, like what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? Oh, I do this. I'm from here. I'm here to do XYZ tonight. So 80% of the conversation, you can fall back on the same boring, normal interview mode questions that a regular guy does. But the crucial difference, what makes her chase you, whereas she does not chase that regular guy, is that the other 20% of the time you are adding these emotional spikes, these ups and downs. The girl says something, whatever it is, you respond, fuck you, I hate that. Negative spike. Nah, I'm just kidding, you're cool. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Go back to normal conversation. A little later, the girl's like, yeah, I'm from Russia. I'm here on vacation. You can say, Russian? Oh my God, I fucking love Russian girls. Hug her. Boom. Positive spike. And then once you've spiked the emotions, you can just go back into normal conversation. And that's all you got to do. That's all that's actually needed to make a girl start chasing you, no matter how hot she is. You just rinse, repeat that formula endlessly. Boring small talk, positive spike. Boring small talk, negative spike. Boring small talk, positive spike. Positive, negative. And each time you do this, the girl is getting progressively more and more aroused by you. She's becoming more and more emotional. She'll usually become more emotionally expressive herself, like her face will open up. She'll go from kind of resting bitch face to smiling, laughing, staring in your eyes, touching you. She'll also become more compliant, which is really the most important thing. In other words, she's willing to follow your lead and do what you tell her to do. If you say, let's go over here, she'll follow. If you say, let's go back to my place, she'll come with you. If you say, get on your knees, she'll do it. Compliance is really the goal here. Getting a girl chasing you is only useful insofar as it makes her more compliant. So the goal is not really to get her chasing. The actual goal is just to get her to be compliant, but getting her chasing you is ultimately how you get that compliance. So in the beginning, just putting your focus on saying these words to girls as often as you can, I love you, I hate you, that is the best way to learn this. However, the real key to this is not in the words themselves, it's in the emotions you put behind the words. Now pay attention because this is really, really key. And this is where we get to what I call the playful to sincere spectrum. So remember, to recap what we've said so far, the goal is always to give her strong emotions, stronger than the other guys can give her. That's what she wants. That's fundamentally what makes her chase you. You do that by giving her these emotional spikes of positive and negative. I love you and I hate you. However, there are two levels to how you can deliver these spikes. You can say I love you or I hate you in a playful way, which we've covered so far, or you can say them in a sincere way. You can put real emotion behind them and into them. Now, as I said, when you first get started with this, you always want to stay at level 1. That is spiking her emotions, saying I hate you, saying I love you, but doing that in a playful tone of voice where she knows you're not being serious. The hate and the love is never sincere. She knows that it's just banter. So for example, when you say things like, I fucking hate you, you suck, or you're done, it's over. You know what? My attraction for you just completely died. It's going to be very obvious to the girl, just based on your tone of voice, that you're just joking around when you say these things. And at level 1, what you want to get used to is using, stronger and stronger spikes, but saying them in a playful way so you can always get away with it. It's always perceived as just banter and joking around. For example, could you right now walk up to a girl and say any of these things? Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. You're done. I fucking hate you. I despise you. You disgust me. Probably not, right? Those are pretty crazy things to say to a girl if you say them like that. However, you can also deliver every single one of those super strong negs in a completely playful tone of voice. And it would actually be totally cool. So play around with saying those things, using those very harsh, hateful quote unquote negs, but say them in a playful tone of voice so the girl knows you're not actually serious. For example, fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. You're done. I fucking hate you. I despise you. Or even, you disgust me. Do you see the difference there? Same exact words, but the way you're saying them completely changes the emotional meaning. So the whole trick to this, remember, the stronger the emotional spikes you give her, the more she's going to chase you. But the way you can get away with using these very strong emotional spikes is to say them at first in a playful way. And that's how you give her these really, really strong, intense emotions of love and hate. But you're also covering your ass socially because you're not saying anything that would actually offend her or get you in trouble. Like again, even something as strong as telling someone you disgust me, you can actually say that in a playful tone of voice and completely get away with it. Like, you disgust me. So you're giving her that very strong emotion, that drama, by using this power word of disgust, but you're doing it in a way where it can always be framed as banter. And this also applies on the I love you side of things as well. If you want to get a girl chasing you like crazy, you want to give her strong negative spikes like we talked about, but you also need to give her strong positive spikes as well. Remember, the goal here, the key idea is you want to simulate that passionate, stormy relationship between a man and a woman. So that does include really strong positive statements as well. Like, for example, I love you, you're my soulmate, I'm obsessed with you, you're amazing, I've never met anyone like you before. Now, again, hearing that, most guys would say, well, I'm not going to say that to a girl I just met. It's too needy, it's too desperate, it's giving her power away. And again, that would be true if you said those things in a very sincere tone of voice, but that's not what you should do. Again, in the beginning, you want to always say these things in the form of a joke, in a playful tone of voice where it's obvious that you're not actually being serious. You're not actually needy. You don't actually love the girl. You're just saying that as a form of banter. So for example, the words I love you can be said sincerely in kind of a beta male needy way, like I love you. Or they can be said in an insincere, ironic, almost kind of like player kind of way. Like, I love you. What's your name? Nadia? Delightful. Where are you from? Brazil? Oh, it's perfect. I love you. Come here. Hug. When you're saying I love you like that, the girl knows you don't mean it. It doesn't come across as weak and submissive. It's not giving your power away because the way you're saying it is so insincere and almost kind of dismissive that the emotions behind it, which it's actually conveying, are more like, I don't really give a fuck about you, but I'm just being nice and saying nice things to you to humor you. I love you. It means nothing to me. I'm a sociopath. I have no human emotions. I'm just telling you what you want to hear. Do you understand? The words I love you said in one way can communicate desperate, weak, needy, pathetic, but those same exact words delivered in a different tone of voice can communicate the exact opposite. ice cold player, asshole, psychopath. It's that guy who says I love you to every girl because he's a heartless manipulator. He obviously doesn't actually feel it. He's just saying it because he's telling people what they want to hear. So again, it's never about the words you're saying. It always is about the emotions you're putting behind the words. And that's how you can get away with saying these very, very strong things, making very strong statements, both negative and positive, and giving the girl very strong emotions, but you're always staying on top of the frame. You're never seeming like you're too mean on one hand or too needy and desperate on the other. And play around with this, get a feel for it. Stop focusing on the words other than as just a kind of format, and instead put all your focus on conveying different emotions using those same words. For example, you can say to a girl, I hate you, but you can deliver that in a warm, affectionate tone of voice where it's actually conveying that you like her, that you're kind of fond of her. For example, I hate you. You kind of say it with a smile, Or likewise, you could say I love you to a girl, but deliver it in a kind of aggressive or confrontational way, like I fucking love you. See how that works? All right. So as I said, this is now much, much stronger than what even the regular rookie pickup artist type guy does. You're no longer just using these mild little push pulls like you're cute or we wouldn't get along. Now you're saying these much, much more intense and arousing things. I love you. I hate you. Fuck you. You're amazing. I'm obsessed with you. You fucking disgust me. And so you're saying these very strong things. They're giving the girl very strong emotional spikes. They're making her very aroused by you, even though you're saying these things at the start, like I said, in this playful and insincere way, disguising them as banter. And this alone will put you in the top 1% of guys who get laid, who get the hottest girls, who have sex every fucking night. Even though this is still not even at the highest level, if you just master this level, this gives you ungodly power over women. And again, what's nice about it is that this level is actually still very low risk. Now, the highest level of this technique, however, the one where it really is like being a fucking Jedi Master or a Sith Lord, is when you use these strong push pulls. You say I love you, you say I hate you, but this time you put real emotion behind it. And the way you can think about this is that it's sort of like giving the girl an emotional energy blast. Like in Dragon Ball Z where they shoot the lightning out of their hands or whatever. That's what the highest level of this looks like. You are literally blasting the girl with strong emotions. And it's electrifying. It's like you're shocking her with a fucking taser. So this level, we're saying the exact same words, the exact same things we covered in the previous level. On the push side, on the hate side, it's things like, fuck you, I hate you, get lost, you're finished, it's over, disgusting, you're pathetic. On the I love you side, you could be saying things like, I love you, I'm obsessed with you, you're amazing, you're so pretty, be my girlfriend, I'm falling madly in love with you. But the difference is, at this level, the most extreme level, the most advanced level, at this level, we're using these very strong push pulls, but we're no longer saying them playfully. We're not saying them as a joke. We're saying them, but this time we're putting real emotions behind them. We're putting actual emotional force into them. So on the playful to sincere spectrum, this is now fully sincere. So again, let's look at those pushes, the I hate you side of things. How can you say some of those lines, use some of those negative spikes, and actually put real emotional force behind it? Well, it would be things like, fuck you. I fucking hate you. Get lost. You're finished. It's over. You disgust me. I despise you. You're pathetic. Pretty strong, right? Very strong. Now, right away, hearing this, your reaction is almost certainly something like, well, why the hell would I ever want to say something that mean to a girl or go that negative? It doesn't make sense. Again, like I don't hate her. I don't have any ill will towards her. Why would I say these super strong, mean things like you disgust me or whatever and, say it sincerely? And the answer again is you need to think of this like a role play or a simulation. Remember, you want to think of this in terms of giving the girl those strong emotions that she would normally only get from a multi-year long, passionate, turbulent, kind of tumultuous relationship, but doing that in a condensed way in a single interaction. And so remember at all times, you're not saying these things to be mean or to hurt the girl's feelings ever. That's not the intention here. You're saying them to give her a kind of emotional role play. You're letting her step into the role of being in that kind of passionate, stormy relationship, letting her experience those emotions, but with no actual commitment and with no negative downsides or consequences for her. You're giving her the opportunity to experience strong emotions and that very strong, polarizing, masculine energy from you. And you're doing this ultimately as a way of exciting her. It's thrilling to her. It turns her on. Women want to feel your strength sometimes. They want to feel that masculine polarity. And when you use these very strong negative spikes delivered with real emotion behind them, that's a very, very powerful and arousing way of doing this. Like if you say to the girl, for example, fuck you. or, get the fuck out of here. Now, again, you don't want to be using this on the girl next door, okay? This stuff is not to be used on some nerd girl you're friends with or the woman at your office. This very strong emotional energy blast of real, like, you, that's not meant to be used on girls in normal situations, okay? So that being said, why do I bring it up at all? Well, what we're really talking about here at this level is very hot girls with very big egos in an environment such as a nightclub where you need to make an immediate, strong emotional impression on her, because if you don't, she's going to shoot you down very fast, or she's just going to be kind of bored and impassive and she won't chase you at all. So I want to make that very, very clear before we go further with this, because I don't want you getting in trouble using this on the wrong girl at the wrong time. I don't want you traumatizing random girls at the coffee shop like, fuck you, bitch, come over here. The YouTube video said it would work. Why doesn't it work? What we're talking about here is the heavy artillery, okay? Like, this is not to be used on civilians, but this level of emotional intensity and emotional force is the secret of how you get those 9s and 10s in the club peeling their panties off to bang you in the restroom. This is how you get that super, super hot dime piece girl chasing you, addicted to you, fully in love with you and obsessed. This is how you can walk up to that girl who is stunning, dolled up to the 9s, tight dress, high heels, blown out hair, and quickly have her chasing you, following you around like a lost puppy. So this level is advanced, is what I'm saying. And you really, really need to master the other lower levels first before you ever would try using this. But the reason I'm showing it to you here is because this is how you get those insanely hot girls and get them chasing you like crazy. You really do need to go stronger with the emotional spikes than you would on a normal girl. I love you, I hate you, but this time putting real emotion into it, real sincerity, real energy and force behind it, and giving it that kind of like oomph to it. As I heard one guy put this once, it always stuck with me. He said, you cannot be a Zen monk when doing push-pull. In other words, you can't be detached with this. To get the full power of this, you have to put real emotion into what you're saying. Now, why is that? Well, what you have to understand is that the really hot girls, the 9s and 10s, they are very, very emotionally jaded. They're very numb to normal emotional expressions. And so you need to go much more intense with these girls if you want to make any emotional impression on them at all. Particularly in the context of a bar or a nightclub, these girls are completely jaded. When a girl is extremely beautiful, when she's used to getting a lot of male attention all the time, it takes a very, very strong emotional spike to get her to feel anything. So generally, when you're talking to a girl like this, your polite little, I don't think me and you are going to get along, that doesn't make her feel anything. Even a pretty strong push delivered playfully, like, I hate you. That's still not really going to make much of an impact. On a normal cute girl, that would cause a pretty strong spike of emotion. But on a really hot girl, that's not going to be strong enough to make you compelling to her. What you will get from these girls instead is usually just no reaction whatsoever. She'll generally be looking back at you with kind of a blank look on her face, kind of blasé. She may even respond politely and be like, oh, really? You hate me? Why is that? But she's bored. She doesn't actually give a fuck. You're not making an emotional impact. And so on these girls, on the very hot girls, the 9s and 10s, you've got to put more force behind the spikes. So an example of that might be something like, hey, fuck you. Or, I fucking hate you. Now, on that super hot girl who's jaded, that actually gives her something of an emotional spike. She's like, whoa, what was that? I like that. It's like a little electrical shock almost, And again, I really want to emphasize, you're not doing this. You're not saying this to be mean or to actually hurt her feelings or scare her or anything like that. You're doing this to give her an opportunity to feel your strength, to experience that masculine energy from you that she really, really likes. And you can kind of think of this as being equivalent to like spanking a girl during sex. When you spank a girl, you're not trying to harm her. You're actually doing it to make the sex more pleasurable for her overall. Because when you mix that little sting of pain with the pleasure, it makes everything feel much, much better and more intense. And it's exactly the same with using these negative emotional spikes in the conversation. And so the way my game typically looks when I'm really switched on, when I'm in the zone, when I'm talking to that really hot girl at the club, it's like, what's your name? Rebecca? Boring. Fuck that. I fucking hate that name. Fuck you. No, I'm just kidding. You're actually pretty cute. What's that? Where am I from? Fuck you. That's where I'm from. Fucking hate you. So boring. So typical. What's that? Nah, I'm just fucking around. You're adorable. Come here. Hug. What's your name again? Rebecca? We're getting married tonight, Rebecca. You're going to be my future ex-wife. Hey, focus. Shh. Shut the fuck up. Nah, I'm just kidding. I love you. Now notice here that it really doesn't matter what the girl is saying back. I can just do this in an endless stream of strong positive and negative spikes regardless of what she's saying. So that is very, very emotionally arousing to the girl. Okay. And I'm just completely improvising this. What I said there is not like fully thought out lines that you should copy and say yourself or anything, although you potentially could, but I'm just trying to give you a flavor of how this looks when you're doing it right. And if we just took that little example, just that little dialogue there, if we were to map that emotionally, it would look like this. Now, the key with this is that when you hear the way I say this in the full sequence, it doesn't actually sound that bad, right? Like if you were to take one phrase out of context, it does sound very strong, like fuck you. And that's because it's meant to be strong. When you're saying that, when I said it in that moment, I'm deliberately putting sincere emotional force behind those words. It's not like, fuck you. It's fuck you. When I'm saying that, I'm putting real emotion into it, an emotion of anger, aggression, whatever you want to call it. I'm not pulling my punches. But the reason it works, the reason you get away with it is you can always pull back at any time by saying, I'm just kidding, change the tone, go back to playful. You can swing back to the positive side. Like, I'm just kidding. You're actually adorable. I love you. And so you're giving her these strong negative spikes, which she actually craves for variety, for drama, but you're never staying on the negative for too long. You're never staying on anger for too long. You're always fluctuating between a positive and a negative. And that's what turns her on. That's what actually arouses her. That's what makes her chase you. That's what gives you massive value to her. And for girls, you have to understand this feels like sex. This feels almost better to sex than them in some ways. You've got to understand that. When you can do this to a girl, when you've mastered all these levels, especially this last level, this really is like you are fucking her emotions. You're giving her an emotional orgasm almost. It is highly pleasurable to her. It's highly stimulating. It's addictive. And this is fundamentally what all girls crave and how you can make them chase you. Now, obviously, to use this technique on girls, you need to actually be in a conversation with them. And as I said earlier, this must happen in person, face to face. The reason you can't use these push pulls on girls over text is, again, she can't hear your vocal tonality over text. And so she can't tell if you're being playful or sincere. So again, you only ever want to use this on girls in a face-to-face conversation, like if you've approached them or you're meeting them on a date. Now, that being said, how do you actually get face-to-face with a hot girl to use this technique on? Well, one way is to approach her, but another way, which I've been using a lot these days, is to get her to approach you. I typically get approached by 2 or 3 girls every night I go out, sometimes very hot girls, and I have frequently ended up sleeping with them. And that's what I show you how to do in my free book, The Ultimate Guide to Making Women Approach You. Now, obviously, when the girl approaches you first, the game is a lot easier, and having girls approach you is pretty much the simplest way to get the easiest sex of your life. So if you want easy sex and no rejection, click the link in the pinned comment below, enter your email address on the next page, and I'll email you this free report. And when you do that, you're also going to be signed up to my free email newsletter with daily new articles from me about dating psychology, game, attracting women, animal magnetism, as well as some of the more occult or esoteric topics that are often too weird to talk about here on YouTube. And make no mistake, my best free content is posted to my email list. It's not posted here on YouTube. The stuff I put on YouTube is just a tiny fraction of what I'm doing online right now. The main thing I'm doing is writing my daily email newsletter. That's the mothership. That's where I post all my most cutting edge new ideas and techniques. The YouTube is really just something I set up to get more subscribers onto the newsletter. But the newsletter is where the real action is. And anyone who's been subscribed to me for a while will vouch for that. So make sure you sign up to my email list now at the link below. Click the link in the description. And like I said, when you sign up for the newsletter now, I'm also going to bribe you by giving you this free book I wrote, How to Make Beautiful Women Approach You, no matter your looks, age, or money. Get that now while you still can. I may not offer this forever. I could pull this offer down at any time. So sign up now. Get your free copy while it's still available. And then if you like the newsletter, you can stick around. Or if you don't like it, you can easily unsubscribe at any time. But make sure you grab that free guide right now while it's still available. So click the link in the description below to get your free book right now. I'll see you over there.